21st. Oh, hold on. I'm gonna repeat that. All right, it's 6:02. I'm going to call the March 21st Board of Education meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. In public session, if there's anyone here from the public that would like to address the board. No people here, so for the second time, is there anyone from the public that would like to address the board? For a third and final time, is there anyone from the public that would like to address the board? Seeing none, public session is closed at 6:03. Administration status of schools, Mr. Cavallaro.
Yes, before I introduce the members of our IT team from Vanguard, formerly known as the Business Network, they just changed their name. They'll explain that in a minute. I just want to let the board know that tomorrow morning, Matt, Judy, myself, and then some members of our team, Rosak Kapora and Stefania Izzo, will be going before MARB. It's a Zoom meeting to talk about our budget. We feel confident that our budget is a good, solid one that will work for us next year. The points that I want to be able to make, though, and Kevin, you and I have had some conversations, are that teacher raises over the next couple of years are going to be important. As you all know, we've talked about our starting salary in the region is fairly low. So there's something to think about. They're not up for another couple of years. Several of our employees, our bargaining units haven't received raises in a couple of years. Those are all going to have to be factored into future budgets. We did set some money aside this year. We're negotiating with ASPE, which is our secondary food service employees, custodians, clerical people, but they haven't gotten steps into our raises in 2 or 3 years. Which leads me, so again, those are things that are going to have to be considered. The city's going to have to make an investment. They are concerns that I feel need to be expressed now to give the city plenty of time to plan. Which leads me to tonight's presentation as well. I talked about the business network. They're going to talk to you about our infrastructure and what it takes to keep the schools up and running. I want you to keep in mind that over the past couple of years, that due to COVID, we ramped up our technology in the district. Much of it we received because of our status as a Alliance district. We were able to receive a lot of free computers. We were also able to purchase with COVID funds computers so that we have one-on-one access for all of our students. We've purchased, as you know, the Promethean boards, which are really popular. We are in the process of, they're not all here yet, but every teacher will have a laptop computer. So those are all investments that we've made. Some of it has been for free. Some of it has been through funds that we've been able to receive. The other big factor, keep in mind that over the last several years, because of the high school construction project, as we influxed technology into the schools, we were able to leave the high school kind of off the grid, so to speak. But keep in mind that computers don't last forever. Smart boards and Promethean boards. Remember, we had smart boards, now we have Promethean boards. We actually upgraded because the technology changed. So not only do things break, but they get out of date pretty quickly. So I think that those are the kinds of concerns that we want to bring and express to MARB to say, look, yeah, we're doing okay now. We've done well with what we've been able to receive and purchase and supplement our budget. But down the road, those are things that are all going to have to be addressed. Now, Again, you're not gonna address it like we addressed it in 1 or 2 years. We did start a lease program, I believe, just prior to COVID, where we had so many computers coming into the district every year. Maybe we'll have to go back to that. I'm not sure as of now. Right now, we have mostly brand new equipment. All the equipment that I believe we have is currently under warranty. We do lease some of our equipment. I'll leave it to our experts to kind of fill you in on those things. But they have planned a presentation. We are in really good shape with the equipment that we hand out to our students and our staff. I think the thing that these guys do a great job of, and I mean this sincerely, is preparing us for the next generation. Whereas if we were able to add or had to add equipment or upgrade our signals or whatnot, we seem to be able to stay one step of the curve. And again, these guys do a great job of advising us. You're going to hear about Erate tonight, which they help us access. That gets us a really big discount when we go to purchase our infrastructure.
Network infrastructure.
So you'll hear a lot about that. Without any further ado, again, I want you guys to keep that in the back of your minds. But I want to introduce members from, again, formerly known as the Business Network Group. They are now Vanguard. Michael and Jeff Grandy, both of whom grew up in West Haven, went to school in West Haven. They're a good local company, and we feel really lucky. They've been with us for about 12 years. I want to say around 12 years.
Thank you, Neil. Good evening, board. I'm Jeff Grandy. This is Michael Grandy, my younger brother, if you can believe it. So, yeah, thanks. Also with us tonight is Jeffrey Tagliatella, one of our senior systems engineers, instrumental in helping us run the school system. So we have a presentation and we'll take questions. It might be easier to get through the presentation and ask questions because we try to kind of preempt questions you may ask. But certainly we want questions.
So we'll politely hold them till the end.
Please, thank you. So just a quick background on our naming. We embarked upon a rebranding. We're a company of about 50 plus folks. We started in West Haven, now we're in Milford. I'm one of the founders of the company, and it was called the Business Network Group for about the first 5 years. Been in business 17 years. People just kept calling us TBNG, so we rebranded about 10 years ago to TBNG. Approximately 4 years ago, we started a cybersecurity division called Vancourt. It's actually a trademark name that we invested in. It's okay, no, it's all right. You're the boss. You can call it whatever you'd like. It's really Matt. We need to make sure it gets it. And that's effective April 1st. There's no material change to what we're doing. It's basically, actually, the material change is more increased cybersecurity overlap on infrastructure. So that's really our play in the market. So, but anyway, as we move on, so you can go past that. So we have basically 4 areas of discussion points for you folks tonight. We did not meet last year. We do this annually, and obviously due to COVID, et cetera. We actually have 2 years worth of information in here, but we've kind of consolidated in such a fashion that kind of flows pretty quickly. So the first one is our support team and metrics. And so we put this slide in here because some of you folks are new. And I think it's important to understand, what our team does. And we're just a small portion of the team that supports this account. We're not necessarily to go through everybody on there, but some of the instrumental folks that are actually here in the school. Also, like as I had mentioned, Jeff Tagliatella. And when we need to pull in some of our other senior advisors, we expand and contract as we need to. That's all part of the contract. There's an additional fee for that. That's additional. That's a sort of a value add to what we can bring to the school district, and it's worked very well over the last 12 years. So what do we actually do? So technology means a lot of things to a lot of people. The essence of which for the West Haven Public Schools, what we do is we provide technology support, and we do that in many different ways. One of the most important ways that we do it is obviously through staffing for help desk, and traditional break fix help desk piece of it. But also, as Neil had mentioned, we try to plan as best we can to support not only the infrastructure piece of it through various programs, but to make sure that the security and some of the other elements of planning are in place. And some of this stuff you don't see on a regular basis because, we'll meet, come back in a month, 2 months. At the same time, we're taking care of the day-to-day school stuff. So we have some metrics on that to share with you. But one of the things we're going to talk a little bit about tonight, some of these things up there, we talk about the local wide area networks, wireless networking, cybersecurity, which is going to be critical, but things that we also help out with are voice over IP services for the phone system. And I would argue to say that even though we love Chris Everone, Jeff Tagg does an awesome job managing vendors for the school. I don't give him enough credit for that. He handles a lot of, we have to interact with anything that touches, and sometimes a little too much. If there's a problem with video, they call us, phones. If there's a problem with the toaster, you can get the idea, they just call us. So Jeff Tagg, thank you for that. So the school district, there's 11 sites, some are non-instructional sites like Malloy. There's over roughly 1,000 employees. There's a total of 8,810 devices on this network. Just to give you some sort of measure of this, 4 years ago, it was approximately, call it about 3,000. And that included all the computer labs, and teachers' laptops, et cetera. So in a period of less than really 3 years, it's grown over 100%, almost 200% in some respects, depending on how you count it. As we've increased we call those endpoints with Chromebooks with the one-to-one initiative, we've also had to increase, you look over your head, wireless access points. There was such an incredible demand on our network once we started introducing one-to-one devices that it actually cratered the old wireless network. And we had to move quickly to pilot and test some of the new rollout and get that in place to continue the one-to-one, particularly when the students came back in 2021. It was very stressful, to say the least. But it's a very large network. There's in 2021 year to date so far, approximately 2,500 support tickets have been opened. A little bit under 2,400 or 2,500 have been closed. And in previous year, we closed almost 4,000 tickets. So these are requests for things like my wireless is bad. I accidentally spilled orange juice on my laptop. I can't believe I forgot my laptop. Can you send me a new one? It spans the gamut, and we've seen some pretty difficult challenges with making sure that everyone gets what they need in a timely fashion. My wife's a teacher, so I totally understand it, and they seem to be very impatient sometimes for the right reasons. But we need to deliver what they need to be successful. And the same goes with the students. So there's sometimes a line in the media center for break fix on the Chromebooks. So a variety of things go into support tickets, but it's a huge piece of what we do.
You see my eye twitch, I work in healthcare IT, so I'm having PTSD.
We might need your name. We have to get your resume after this. So some of the challenges in K-12 as it relates to, it's not just West Haven per se, but it's really across the state. And we work with a bunch of other school systems. And we also work with a bunch of private schools. And I would argue to say that they all face some of the same challenges. The one-to-one initiative really increases the amount of just possible break fix. And to put that again in perspective, at any given time, even though they're under warranty, that particular widget needs to be picked up, identified, and processed through the the Lenovo process internally so we can get it and get a new one out there. Talked about infrastructure stress, and I think this is one just from my years of not only being a student before school, but coming through now as an almost 50-year-old person. It's very difficult to wire all the schools. This school is a gem. The work on this building project was fantastic. And I would argue also to say that the other schools that are coming out, like Washington School that's slated to be coming online, we work very closely with the design team to make sure that we try to future-proof. And I don't particularly like that word, but we try to do our best to say, we really have one shot to put these wires in the walls. We have to make sure that whatever we do, it's going to come 5 or 10 years later, we have access to it and we can upgrade it, because we don't want to go back and do it again. So we're very, very aware of that. I think the 37% increase in support requests so far this year is a result of the one-to-one initiative. Again, it's kind of harking back to Neil's comments. There's going to be a significant longer-term funding request with that. That we normally would not take up in terms of a lot of the stuff we got through federal funds, through the state. It's been a kind of a hodgepodge of funding activity that we've never seen before. It just was kind of COVID hit in 2020. The state came forward, the federal government came forward. And so we, as a result, have a ton of devices, and there's a limit on their life in terms of how long they become obsolete. Staffing increases, increasing access to our team is constant, because we, just like any other business, we lose employees, we hire employees. Cybersecurity risks, probably one of the biggest takeaways tonight. We have a separate section on that. Even though people would say a Chromebook is really not that dangerous, it's another piece of the threat surface. So even though in and of themselves, they're pretty simple devices, if used the right way, they could be unfortunately a weapon against our network. So we have to be vigilant. Data protection is an issue that's come up. We recently were contacted by the city, approximately 4 weeks ago, from a risk management to help them fill out their insurance cyber liability form. The interesting element about this is this district doesn't have their own cyber liability policy, which is something I think, which I'm correct, right? And so what we did was we filled out the policy questionnaire with the information we had, knowing that there may be some increases in security that we're going to have to address down the line. And then we're going to come back to this because it's kind of a big deal. So data protection is up there because some of the pieces of knowing where student data is, this is not just about the laptop or the widget. This is actually about information that flows into applications, et cetera. We need to have a better policy. So we need to start thinking about, how do we tighten that up, and we have a written policy. So, and for that, we typically will bring in an outside consultant that just really specializes in data privacy. So we brought that up to the attention of the city. And again, I think the other piece of this really, the takeaway is post-pandemic funding concerns. At some point, the well is going to dry up for federal funds, state funds. And even though West Haven has done really well in the sense of receiving these funds, we need to be cognizant about how do we, in 2-3 years from now, manage this budget when we don't have those funds available. We don't have answers for that. That's not our specialty. We definitely try to help get in terms of position the district for getting the best funding they can get. But it is something we need to consider, because these devices have a kind of a lifespan of about 4 to 5 years. And you all have devices at your house, so you all know what that's like in terms of an iPhone. So we've done a lot of upgrades in the last 2 years. Some of this stuff, I think, if we look at 2020 first, we look at Office 365 migration. That was a huge endeavor because we moved from a standalone server in a data center here at the high school to the Office 365 cloud, which was part of the Microsoft agreement that we had as a district. So there was some costs involved in getting there, but what that essentially did is it basically decreased the threat vector of having an email server on site. It increased reliability because now Microsoft owns the uptime and availability on mail. So mail is still critical. I know 14-year-old daughter texts 2 rooms away from me, but email is really important, particularly when it's an emergency. So that was, I think, a huge move. The switching upgrades and backup you see on here, Sentinel-1's a security piece. The internet upgrade and the one-to-one Chromebook, phase 2, was all directly attributed to sort of that initial COVID 1.0 phase, right? So coming from like 1.0, I think we're looking at 3.0 right now. So in 2021, as a result of some of the Chromebook implementation and ultimately phase 3, we had to upgrade the wireless across the entire district. There was no way the old system could handle it. It was antiquated, it was 6+ years old, and it was on the wrong standards, wireless standards. One of the other elements we did here was we connected the Bennett Rink for the first time ever. The Bennett Rink is now part of this school. There's a physical connection between the two, and that allowed us to just do some cool things, which we'll get into shortly. And then the Promethean Board upgrade the deployment is still going. We're just waiting for some supply chain issues to sort themselves out. That was a massive endeavor through one of our, not through us, but through CDWG, who was on a state contract. So working with them to make sure that that was getting deployed correctly. Oh, and of course, the building project. We have lived in West Haven High School for how many? We have our own set of hard hats, work boots, and safety vests that were still in the back of our cars. So the importance of upgrades, as you can obviously see, is that there's just a massive amount of throughput we needed. We needed better capabilities to be flexible for inbound and outbound traffic. So we had all these Zoom sessions going on. We needed obviously email resiliency. And with the Bennett Rink, again, this is credit to Jeff Tagg, 100% credit to him and his engineering skills, managed to get fiber optic underneath the parking lot to the Bennett Rink so we can connect internet, wireless network in there, the phone system we extended there, and all of the other like safety elements that they use if they want to use access control or video, all of that stuff now is part of the West Haven network. This is one unified network. Because we always used to, Bennett Rink would come up and be like, yeah, we have to get there. But we did. It took a few years, but we got there. So now I'm going to hand it off to Mike Grandy to talk a little bit about the reimbursement piece of how the E-rate works in the district.
All right, so hello, thanks for having us. So E-rate is a program that's run by the federal government through what's called the Universal Service Administration Company, USAC. It is directly funded by the FCC. If you look at your phone bills, your wireless phone bills, your home phone bills, you'll see something in there about the Universal Service Fund. So everyone essentially is paying into this at all times. So corporations, individuals, you name it. And it's a federal program that goes out. It's designed to supplement funding for schools and libraries is the portion that public schools are able to take advantage of. As such, we have utilized that program, I think, for the entire term that we've been involved in consulting with technology for the district. There's two primary programs. One is the E-rate program, which is an annual program. And there's a special consultant that's hired by the district that does all of the background work and funding, administration, and understanding sort of how many funds how many dollars that the district is eligible for, and how essentially those can be allocated. The second piece is called ECF, Emergency Connectivity Fund. That's a very important one to know, because we'll talk about that in a moment. But that was a one-time allocation that was set forth through special congressional funding, which allowed school districts based on need, and it's a rough formula. Essentially, it's the percentage of free school lunches that a district has. So in West Haven, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 85%. So 85% of every dollar that you're eligible for is eligible for reimbursement from this from the federal government through this program. It's limited in allocation per year. If you think about the number of school districts in the United States, but it's definitely a very big help for all of the work that we've done over the years. We'll just talk briefly here. So throughout their C1 program, essentially there's two components. There's C1 is their connections. So think of fiber optic networks, all the behind the scenes wiring that goes into connecting all the school systems and out to the internet. That's Comcast and CDN. So the district has received $136,000 just over in 2020, and just over 78,000 to pay for those in 2021. So it's a huge, obviously, reimbursement that we seek to make sure that it stays in place. C2, that's the wireless. That's the network, which you've heard of as network switches, routers, things like that, firewalls. Those are all part of your network infrastructure. Those are eligible for C2 spending. Just to give you an idea of how important this program is, we spent, I think the district spent just under $550,000 for all access points, deployment, controllers, everything to do with wireless throughout the entire district. It received 466,000 plus in reimbursed funds for that. Truly a huge benefit from a sort of a balance sheet perspective to support all the development. The network project in 2020 was really the backbone. That was all the switches and the routers and things like that, UPS devices to make sure that if there were power failures, that the devices would wind down slowly or stay online until backup power was turned on. And you can see of 337,000, 286 was reimbursed. So really two key reimbursement programs there. For ECF, this is a special program. This was a one-time opportunity, and it was a result of the learn from home initiatives that essentially we all had to deal with over the past 2 years, having schools closed and remote learning in place. And in order to make that possible, initially the state government, through some grants and some other things, as we spoke about, as an alliance district, allocated, for lack of a better term, some random laptops and other devices to be given out for those in the highest areas of need. Those were a challenge for us to manage, but we did get through that, and we got through the end of the year with what we had from Chromebooks and things from prior year purchases. The CCF program came online in August of 2021. It was a very short window to apply. It was based on the same formula, essentially, of need that the E-rate program is based on. So districts that were of the highest need were going to get funding first. Districts of lower need would have funding allocated as available at the end. So because we were sort of closer to the front of the line, we were able to submit for funding for up to $400 per device based on our current census. So using our, essentially what we're able to have for student count and faculty count that did not have double dip. So you could not have used any ECF funding that was already used for federal funds. If you applied for federal funds or anything else, you couldn't double dip. So it all had to be net new. And the total amount was about 2.4 million, which was approved, and it was up to $400 a device. The reason why they picked that is if you look at many Chromebooks with the extended warranty, you're looking at that price range. If you were buying a laptop or something more expensive, it would be a credit up to $400 towards whatever the purchase price would be. So that meant 5,981 new Lenovo Chromebooks to be ordered, and 300 new Dell laptops for faculty and staff. So truly, from a funding perspective, it's the first time this has ever happened for a district, or really any district in the United States. And this was a one-time program. All of those units have been ordered. We were able to work with suppliers and manufacturers to at least get the initial grouping of orders in. So of those, let's say, 6,200 units, there's about 4,000 that are already securely stored on premises, and we're waiting for the remaining couple of thousand by the end of the school year, most likely. Tremendous delays due to supply chain. It's been almost impossible to get any guarantees of anything. One of the things we were able to work on and negotiate were extensions on some warranties. So rather than warranties starting back in August of 21, we were able to push a lot of that off into 22. So we'll have some more coverage once all those units go online, which should be September school year. So we're very excited for that. As far as non-E-rate funded pieces, the Promethean boards, which we've talked about through CDWG, that was a major upgrade from the Eno boards. Those were no longer being supported, so something new had to happen. It was just a quick divergence here. We did what's called, we may mention this, cyber safety rally in December at all of the schools in the district, the elementary schools. It was a wonderful event. And, you know, teaching about individuals, students about the importance of cybersecurity and keeping your personal information safe and all these different things. But I will say one of the lasting comments I found was walking through the schools, and as soon as they knew anything about TBNG or what we were doing, or Vanport, our badges and all of our companies, the most exciting thing to talk about were the new Promethean boards. So for all the rest of the work that goes into it, the Promethean boards are the hit, but very good to see. And then obviously through high school building project, we were able to get those boards in here as well. And the remaining boards through CARES funding. And now I'll turn it back over to Jeff, talk a little bit about security.
Thanks, Mike. What you see in front of you is a real-time monitor through one of our partners called Fortinet. Fortinet creates the firewalls that we have at the perimeter of the network here at the school and about 25 other schools that we work with in some capacity. What you're actually watching, I know it's a little bit hard, but if you can see sort of the back and forth, sort of, explosions and pointed directionals, that's actually real-time attacks that happen. It's going on right now at this moment. That's just a sort of glimpse into it. This site that provides us what they call a real-time threat vector is what we face every day here. And we didn't want to bring in, our access to our firewalls. We could have, but this is a better job of it because globally, it's constantly going on. We're under threat 24/7, 365. In this day and age, and you've heard it maybe through places that you work, cybersecurity is paramount, but it's paramount for other reasons other than the obvious, your password, your stuff gets hacked, etc. If we lose access to our firewalls and if we get compromised internally, we still have to run a school system. And we still need to make sure that the life safety stuff is there. We have to make sure that the buses show up and all the things that technology runs in the networks that we provide. So this stuff is happening every day, and it's happening right now. So one of the advantages of our branding, our rebranding to Vancore, is that we have an entire team that focuses on cybersecurity. Their mission and goal in life, they were previously head up by our CISO is Jason Kufal, who actually came here and did the high school security training, was the chief security officer in UConn. So we basically picked up their team and moved them into our company. So our decision to go to Vancore to be a cybersecurity overlay to infrastructure is because we need to protect the school districts and our clients from these threats that are happening every moment of every day. So I said earlier that there was about a month and a half ago, there was a sort of a back and forth with us and the city regarding cybersecurity liability. And so what we do is we get these forms from the various insurance companies, Travelers, Beasley, there's a variety of them, and they give you this kind of generic questionnaire, but they're very, very pointed about what are you currently doing. So we've taken some steps already to kind of protect against what we think, what we would have done either way without the questionnaire. But some of these things that are on there, which I know at some point it's hard for me to see, to be quite honest, but it's basically creating multi-factor authentication. That's similar when you log into your bank account. They ping you with a number, you got to put that number in, even though your username and password is correct. That's multi-factor authentication. We have already deployed it internally for our technology team, but the goal is to push that out to all the teachers and staff so that anytime they log into Office 365, they will be prompted for a second piece of identification that they have to enter. Another piece of this is making sure that we have security awareness training. We've started it, most of the schools are done, we have a few more left. It's so important that we teach everyone, including the secretaries and everyone else who works through as email, what the possible dangers are. If you don't know what it is, don't click on it. Seemingly easy to enforce, but very difficult because everyone's day is busy. Everyone doesn't quite read it, and these are designed to be very misleading types of emails. So we are actively pursuing security awareness training. And I would like to just point out that of all the schools we work with and all the districts and different places that we work in Connecticut, I would like to say West Haven is so far on the curve of that right now, but getting these sessions out there and getting people aware of it. I mean, at some point, they're gonna be like, stop, we have enough. But that means we're doing our job, we're getting that out there. So kudos to the leadership staff here doing it. So future cybersecurity initiatives, we're winding it down right now. We just talked about multi-factor for the staff, for both Office 365 and Google Apps. That's going to be forthcoming. I don't have an exact timeline on that because we need to pilot it with about 30 or 40 people to make sure it works correctly. We want to overwhelm our help desk, ignore Neil's office. Email phishing campaign is something we have to work on to get that out there to teach people so we can kind of grab statistics and say, we need to keep working on this. Security awareness training for non-certified staff. Again, we're trying to roll that into the security training process. Centralized logging, data privacy consulting, all of these other plans that we're talking about are not mandated by us. They're not mandated by the city. They're mandated by insurance companies. And in some respects, if we want to get a cyber liability policy for the school district, which I highly recommend, then we have to take these steps to do this. And not only do we have to take these steps, but we have to really keep on top of them and make sure they work. So that's our job to make sure we get done. It's definitely, and we're here to help the district do that. So I'll stop there. Any questions for anybody? I know there's a lot of information, a bit of I don't know. It's 2 years we did information. So.
Are you guys going to be pushing them from Zoom to Teams?
Not at the moment. That's a little more technical. We can, but Zoom has worked out really well, and we would need to pivot towards that through some testing before we did it. But we can. It's part of the Microsoft piece here, right? Ted? Yes. Yes.
And afterwards, I'll give you a little tip on what our network guys did for a phishing campaign that showed a lot of interesting information
Yeah.
about our users. But I don't want to tell everybody because they didn't expect it.
We appreciate that. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions?
I don't know if it's a question for you or the administration. What are you looking at? Next 2, 3, 4 years?
Yeah, so I think the major considerations, and these are probably figures that once all the proverbial dust settles from all of this funding and sort of the timelines of when things go online, and then how long support is paid for some of these different appliances and hardware, we'll be able to really actually graph it out and make it much easier to digest. Essentially, at the end of 3 years from now, you're going to have no outside influx of funding outside of what we talked about the E-rate was. So that's an annual program. It essentially gets fully utilized by the needs of the district just to keep up with network infrastructure, the things behind the scenes that we had said for the last 12 years, and I still think is true, that you have one of the fastest, best networks when it comes to your network backbone. It's the endpoints, it's the wireless, it's the experiential, it's the experience of people trying to get on wireless here and fighting in between the walls essentially for transmission and access. You're probably looking at sizable investments in the millions of dollars to keep hardware refreshed on a 4-year to 5-year basis in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years. So I would say in the next budget cycle, it's probably going to come up as some of these cybersecurity needs, software unrelated to things that are hardware intangible. And then years 2, 3, and 4 is going to be planning to figure out how we do refreshes. The Chromebooks are wonderful, but even with the warranties that we're able to get the vendor to put on at lower pricing to make sure that we get it within the $400, they break easily. And the minute that the school census rises above our available allotment, we're going to have to keep refreshing. So, I think in the 3 or 4 year window, there's going to be some pretty substantial investments needed from the district.
Just to piggyback on Bob's question and that answer, will you help us determine so we don't have to buy all new devices this year? You'll help us determine which ones need to get replaced out.
Yeah, so one of the things that we have, and I think Steven's over there right now,
Asset management.
we have a really incredible team that understands that the best thing to do is to use and reuse or figure out how to make work devices that maybe aren't under warranty anymore. And if there's some parts that we can sort of cannibalize and keep it moving, keep our sort of stash of spares that are brand new in the box, ready to roll for as long as we can. So we're keenly aware of the importance of reusing and sort of, getting the most life out of what we can. But you pay us to consult and give you the best advice from a vendor agnostic perspective. We'll be planning and walking through that process of knowing what the numbers look like next year, the year after. We'll have all that data for you to guide you on that path for sure. We have 6 folks of our 53 that only are working through the West Haven school system on a daily basis, either at remote, 1 or 2 remotely, 4 or 5 going around to the school systems. We ramp up at different times of year, so if there's we do a big SBAC testing.
They actually have people right in every building ready to go or something.
Exactly. So, it's a common understanding, I think, for all of our industries, whatever they are, that finding and retaining talent is a challenge these days. But it's something that we really work hard to do. So there's a lot of familiar faces. There's going to be some new faces at all times. Thankfully, your team's been here for a very long time, and we'd like to stay here as long as you'll have us. But yeah, we're constantly bringing new folks in. You're our marquee client. West Haven Board of Education is our marquee client. We build business process around your needs, and we want to always be available for that. So even though the name might change, the service won't.
I was just wondering, elaborate on what exactly the cyber liability policy is and what the importance would be for us to have it rated for us.
Yeah, I may have to share this one, but I don't like being an insurance expert, so I won't declare myself one. But I will say, cyber liability insurance is an insurance policy as the holder, which would be the district. Right now, it's the city, essentially, right? So the city maintains a policy that if there were any type of data that were leaked, or there was a hack, potentially ransomware, all the things that you see in the news that are very, very bad, there are coverages in place for not only the remediation of that, so getting your systems back online, getting back connected, making sure that your system is free of malware and virus and other things, but also the credit reporting that you may have responsibility to all of your staff and potentially students to pay for 3 years. Which has happened, right? There are different disclosures that have to happen. There could be a public relations need. There are so many different variations of what the policy will cover, depending on the carrier. The market has moved in a direction that right now, cyber liability policies are becoming increasingly harder to get. Meaning, if you don't check some of the check boxes that we saw, you won't be eligible for one. And potentially, and I'm not a doomsday person here, but because currently your policy is held through the city, it's the city's responsibility essentially to make sure that those boxes are checked. You can pretty gladly say you're doing your part. So I won't get into speaking to whether or not an independent policy is feasible or possible. It's something for sure you may want to look into. Increasingly hard to get, increasingly expensive, and it's going to require you to potentially spend more money than you may have allocated to comply with what the policy says. Essentially, it's like when they ask houses down by the water, you have to lift the house 15 feet in order to get this policy because we know it floods. Well, we know that there's ransomware and hacking that's taking place right now. We know you're going to be subject to it. We know we'll probably have to pay. So we're going to charge you a lot of money to make sure you have all these other things done before we issue the policy. And we've seen with our clients, a policy that cost $20,000, 5 years ago might cost $100,000 now. So, from our perspective as your service provider, we maintain an exorbitantly high policy, whereas, which is essentially assigned to you in the case that we make a mistake. But as employers, you have folks that could potentially make a mistake, and that's what it's there for. Did that answer? Okay.
one question regarding the life cycle of products that everybody's using now that we're on one-to-one. You know, everybody talks about recycling, especially electronics.
We actually, we've been e-recycling before it was common to do so. We, once a year, twice a year, when we have a lot of stuff, as the engineer says, we basically hire an e-recycler to take it and to give us a certification of destruction. So not only are we trying to protect the data that they may get their hands on, it was kind of just thrown out, but being good stewards of the environment, we want to make sure that that's being basically built into new Chromebooks.
Since we are part of the city, cybersecurity insurance. By Dr. Wright said you might recommend on their own. What are the
I think what Mike was saying was, what's unclear at the moment is we don't know, based on what we heard from the risk managers or from the city side, after we answered the questionnaire, what the next step is for the district. And even more so, the district doesn't, speaking on behalf of the district, we have a much bigger area of, you know, we showed you all the stuff that we have to protect. We don't know what the protection is if there was to be a breach or an incident where we have to spend potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars to get everything back and running.
I think the reality of it is at some point, the city's gonna call and say, it's a deal. We've got this plan on the table. We have hundreds of devices. You have thousands of devices. It's time for you to start paying your fair share. I can see that conversation coming pretty shortly. I was caught off guard by it when I received the questionnaire from the risk manager. Forward over to you guys. I thought, wow, this really could be a big expense down the road. We haven't had those discussions with the city. I do anticipate them happening just because of money.
And I think the city also recently, within the past couple of years, changed their person that was doing their IT. Now there's a new guy.
That's
They're
their team. They have
promoted guy, and they have an in-house team versus we have you guys.
Yeah.
So I think it's also a little bit different than
It
how
is.
we manage our stuff.
It is, but as it relates, so that's just sort of the application of who's doing what to what, right? From a tactical perspective. I didn't mean to insinuate that you are out of coverage or don't have coverage. I simply meant we could see it as a possibility that the school system may be asked to or may have to participate with the city. I do believe that there is current policies in place and there are protections in place. So it's just, we see just by that being sent over for us to sort of participate in the completion of, it's only going to get more expensive both for the city and for the school districts. It's not really a blame thing. It's more of, I wonder what's going to come next. We've got to be prepared for that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys, did a great job. One of the things that Judy and I talked about today, along with that, is to possibly, upcoming board meeting, have our coordinators, have some people here to talk about how day-to-day technology is actually now used in the classroom, which you're actually seeing. What I like to say is 2 years ago, when remote distance learning started, we could have the apps, have the services, have the things that people can access now even at home, on their own, at home. So I think it's important that if we had a lot, we gave some of it up. We just had so much, we really had to get up and running. Show you what's actually being in the classroom.
Jeff Tag does a great job on it. We love it. And also, you guys are pretty ahead of the curve there on the Microsoft 365 migration there. So,
Jeff Tag.
good job, good job.
We owe him dinner now. So.
It's right there on the table.
There you go, Jeff Tag, their big meaty dinner, it's right there. And guys, please help yourself, please.
Thank you very much.
All right, next up, is that it that you're going to have?
That's what I had. I go back and I just wanted to go over the handout that we passed out tonight quickly, and then we wanted to give you some time to look at it.
So I put together the handout regarding the American Recovery Plan ESSER 3 funding. I printed out some very important pages of the application that I thought were necessary, and I also put together a budget of the year-to-date spending, as well as all the programs and software that we've paid for so far. Like I said, just go quickly over. I'll go over it in depth next meeting. In the meantime, if there's any questions, if there's any additional information that you would like, please let me know, and I'll get that to the board as a whole, and I'll go over it in depth.
Excellent. So if anybody, if we could all take this home and move through it and then email Matt with the questions so he's ready for the next meeting. I know you had a few that you had brought up previously, so if we can have them, give them to Matt in time for the next meeting, then we can give a full presentation on it. Thanks for giving this to us. We'll look at it. I think that would be really helpful. Great. Next on our agenda is our student representatives. Hello, ladies. Please make sure you have safe treats if you leave before the meeting's over. There's a lot there.
And they're board members too.
Exactly. And we really appreciate it.
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone having a good evening. So spring sports have begun since Saturday. Today and tomorrow, peer advocates will be at Bailey assisting guidance and partnering with course elections. Students Against Destructive Decision (SAPD) held their annual Pi Day event. The money raised is going to senior scholarships. The EMT program will begin April 1st, and the West Haven High School Theater Workshop will be presenting their production You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown on March 24th, 25, and 26 at 7 p.m. There will also be Maintaining showing on March 26th at 2 p.m. and we'd love to have you.
So the West Haven Band will be having their spring concert on March 31st at 7 p.m. And there will be the indoor percussion and jazz band that will also be performing that night, which is exciting. I hope you guys can come out. The senior trip will be at Six Flags on June 1st, and they just released the permission slips for that to be signed on Power School. Seniors are completing the scholarship award applications for the scholarship award ceremony on May 18th at 5 p.m. And those were live on Power School about a week ago, and they're due at the end of this month.
You said May 18th at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
Right there.
Hopefully I'll see you there. On March 11th, West Haven High School was popping with excitement while celebrating student achievements. Popcorn was served with lunch, and I believe the student achievements are posted over there on the wall here to where we eat lunch. I think it's cool to be able to see, what Westies have been doing recently. This Wednesday is SAT Day and also Senior Experience Day. And lastly, the peer advocates are having a fundraiser where you can pay for them to leave eggs in your backyard for children to go around and find on Easter morning. If you'd like to donate for a family who doesn't have money to be able to get this tree, you can email Mr. Paredes or Mrs. Morel or maybe other access or peer advocates. Also, Hannah wanted to apologize for not being able to be here tonight. She really wishes she could. And that's it. Do you guys have any questions for us?
Do you know how much the egg yard egging is?
I don't know something.
$8. $8. All right. Thank you. All right. Board. Oh, you did? Nope. I'm gonna switch it up. I'm gonna start with Morgan. But I think Morgan usually sits down that end too, so she's getting it both ways. Go ahead, Morgan. Do you have anything? Me too. Mr. Guthrie. I just wanted to say a little thank you, shout out to Representative Trinae McGee, who's been posting a lot about visiting our schools and interacting with the students. I think that's super excellent that the kids are having this opportunity to talk to someone that is going to be working on policies that directly affect them in their day-to-day life and then in the future. So I really appreciate her making the effort to go out and visit the schools like she's been doing. I'm gonna go see the concert and the play. So
We're really excited.
me too. It's a jazz band concert, right? Yeah.
I don't have anything other than I would be at the play out there.
I saw that the unsung heroes announcement from the PTA, so I thought that seeing the publicized and, yeah, thanks Matt for putting this together. I definitely have some questions, especially from the technology guys tonight too, so.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it.
Next is D1. I'm going to ask to do these inclusive D1A and D1B, the minutes from the special board meeting and a regular board meeting. It was the tour of school prior to our meeting last night. Amanda left a new copy of those on there because just the date was wrong. It said February, it said March. So if you have a new copy, should have been on your desk. I'll ask for a motion to approve those together. Second? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstention? Mr. Guthrie is going to abstain. We have nothing under D1 or D3, nothing under D4, and the rest is informational. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Second? I'm sure everyone's in favor. Meeting adjourned at 6:57. And please take some snacks. Every time he said C1, I was thinking of that. I got that from